Hello, my name is Steve Adams, and welcome to the Tiger Medical Institute training. I'm the founder and CEO of Tiger Medical Institute. But before we get started, I want you to please be ready to ask questions that may come to mind as I'm speaking tonight on this webinar. My team members are ready to answer your questions so that you can kind of interact with this experience of listening to me. But this gives you the opportunity to ask your questions, kind of, clarify things in your mind while I can stay on task here and keep us on time. Well, for many of you, watching this training, you've attained a measure of success over the 20 plus years, the past 20 or so years. And, the key to compounding or even doubling your net worth is you need time. Okay. And, at 7.2% annual return, which for most of you, if you're investing in yourself and in your own businesses, you can achieve that fairly, I'm not going to say easily, but commonly. You can do that every 10 years. So what could come along and mess this up? Well, for most of you, you're not going to make the big mistake that knocks you off the chessboard of business. It's more likely after 20 or 30 years, going to be something that comes up with your health. Okay. All right. So here's the great thing that we're learning though. In the last 5 to 7 years, there's been so many advances in proactive preventative medicine that you can literally address, reverse, improve your health in amazing ways, and stack the odds in your favor of gaining an extra decade of good health. And what I want you to do is just, imagine for a moment what that would mean to you if, in fact, you got an extra 10 years, another 10 years with your spouse, another 10 years to enjoy your children. Maybe you see your children have grandchildren, time to pursue your vision or to pursue that bucket list of places around the world that you want to see. In the chat, put one thing in there, please, that you would do if you had an extra 10 years to live healthy years, not just live, but healthy, active, vital years. Tell me what you would do. And we're going to get started now and teaching you how. All right, let's first talk about the problem. We live in a hustle culture. You got to go harder. You got to work longer. And, this leads to people falling into chronic stress and compromising their sleep. Okay. Now, I'm not saying everybody on this training does that per se, but culture weighs heavy and kind of can cause us to do more of that than we would like to. All right. People feel off. They don't feel their best. Okay. And, a study by the Population Reference Bureau revealed that 1 in 2 premature deaths are preventable. Okay. Now, I talk to many doctors, okay, that say that they believe that number is more like 7 or 8 in 10 premature deaths that are preventable. All right. Another statistic here that'll support that is the CDC study, which says 60% of American adults have a chronic disease and 40% have more than 2. Okay. So the problem is real. All right, how do we feel? Well, we're exhausted, we're lacking energy, we have brain fog, we have gut and GI issues. These are all very common. Sleep is commonly a struggle. Another thing is people carry pounds around the middle they don't want, and they don't quite understand, how they got there. And so, that's a problem. We feel anxious or afraid, and we don't know why. And others have complex combinations of symptoms, and they don't feel like the medical system is solving the problem for them. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Medical gaslighting. Okay, now this is something a lot of our clients at Tiger Medical have brought up to us, who have gone to 1 or 2 or 3 different physicians, and they felt like their symptoms were dismissed or downplayed. They felt like the physician didn't listen. In some cases, the physician even assigned blame to their condition. And this ends up causing people to search multiple places and live in this place of frustration. adding to that problem, people are confused. All right. There's constant research that comes out that seems to contradict each other. Okay. So what do we believe? If you're active out in the biohacking space, you'll know that all kinds of advice proliferates all over the place, and people get confused about, who do I follow? How do they know if that's going to work for me or not? And then finally, traditional medicine is sick care. It's not preventative medicine. The system is not set up to do that. Your doctor's not a bad person. They're just operating in a system that prevents them from doing that. Okay. If there's no disease, if there's no codable thing that they can assign a diagnosis to, it's very difficult for them to treat you. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about negative consequences. So because people aren't feeling well, they have these myriad of problems, but the traditional system cannot help them yet. They don't feel well. And as a result, their relationships suffer. They have low energy, low resilience. They don't achieve their goals. And it's a straight path to chronic disease. And and what it can lead to, especially if nothing is ever addressed, is that it ends up taking the best years of your life, that should be the best years of your life, the third and fourth quarters, and you spend that time shuttling between doctor's appointments. I know this from personal experience. I watched my dad retire and spend the next 26 years going to doctors. He's still alive, but he's constantly battling chronic disease. All right, what are we seeing at Tiger Medical? Well, the majority, like 9 of 10 people that come to us through our screening process, are pre-diabetic or insulin resistant. Almost everyone has elevated cortisol, which leads to weight retention and is really a reflection of the chronic stress that's not been managed well in their life. We see compromised sleep, which also leads to craving of the wrong foods, which also contribute to that center being heavier than you want, but also leading to compromised energy and resilience. We also see that the stress response is chronically activated. And what this is doing, we share with our clients, is it's setting you up for one of the 4 horsemen, as Peter Attia likes to say, the 4 horsemen, which are major chronic disease categories of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. So what is the solution then? If it's not traditional medicine in terms of getting ahead of these problems, then you need a different approach. And that different approach is root cause medicine, all right, where the physician can take time to listen and to hear you and to understand your history and how you got there, to be able to utilize some advanced testing that insurance companies and the government will not pay for, that are able to locate those underlying mechanisms that are at play causing your symptoms and could cause you to end up with one of those 4 horsemen. And then fourth, it's going to be personalization. You can't do cookie cutter with this. So personalization of the treatment plan based on the testing and your intake. And then finally, ongoing physician interaction to implement life changes that are going to be helpful in driving the kind of results that you're looking for. All right, let's talk about the performance formula. I love this one. I got it from the chief medical officer at a major Big Ten university for the athletic department. And he said performance equals skill minus interference. Let me say that again. Performance equals skill minus interference. So all of you have worked for years on your skills, all right, so that you can perform well. And here's the problem, though. If you don't manage your time well, that's interference. If you don't manage interruptions and your focus well, that's interference. If you have a bad mindset, that's interference. If you try to do too many things, that's interference. But here's a big one that is at the foundation. If you had a pyramid of success, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom one is your physiology. It's your physical health. If you are compromised there, if anything about what I've shared about how our clients are feeling when they show up to us, then you have major interference in your life that is preventing you from utilizing your skill to the fullest extent possible, and it is compromising your performance, and it is costing you time, it's costing you money, and it's costing you relationships. One of the things I want you to think about, maybe send me in the chat here, based on where you are today, where do you feel like the interference in your life is, and is it costing you or not? Just say yes or no, okay? All right, let's move on to the next slide. Our goal here tonight is to teach you to think a different way, all right? Chronic disease, low energy, poor sleep, everything I wrote there, anxious thoughts, added weight, are all forms of interference, as I just said. Poor focus and lack of being able to overcome obstacles, that's interference. So the goal then is we want to lower the interference by resolving or reversing your health conditions or preventing them from turning into bigger problems so that your skill can take over and your performance elevate, okay? And when you optimize your physiology, your skill does take over, your performance does improve because you show up as the best version of yourself. So your relationships are better, your business is better, and your finances are better. All of those things come into play. So let's talk about a story here that kind of illustrates this. This person was 54 at the time. They were the CEO and business owner of a 9-figure retail business that had scaled to almost 50 locations across the country. They had 2 decades of unmanaged stress, a decade of poor sleep, and they showed up to us. This person showed up exhausted with zero ability to focus, irritable, poor emotional control, severe reflux and IBS and constipation for over 2 decades, and the system was not helpful. What we learned from the testing was this person had elevated inflammation, a family health history of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, and it showed up in the genetics as well. This person had severe gut dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of good and bad bacteria in the gut, as well as leaky gut, meaning the gut membrane was permeated, and so bacteria was going out into the system and elevating and spiking inflammation and causing a whole series of second, third, fourth order effects. This person also had a dopamine and serotonin deficiency and a problem metabolizing starch. Okay, so here was the plan. The 5-HTP addressed the serotonin deficiency. Stress mitigation was helpful to reducing this person's overall cortisol profile. Sleep optimization was focused on, and then gut rebalancing powder was prescribed to help improve those good to bad bacteria ratios. Starches were eliminated from the eating plan early on, later reintroduced a little bit to repair the leaky gut, to get rid of that root cause that was tearing the gut apart. And then targeted gut health, cardio risk, and stress mitigation supplementation. Okay, so the supplementation was based off precision measurements and giving this person exactly what they needed to have supported. Okay, and then health habits were implemented with the physician to start to make changes in this person's life. Okay, here are the results. This person after 3 months could state and report that their reflux, their IBS, and their constipation was resolved. After a little more time in the program, the gut balance was restored. That takes time. The serotonin and dopamine were rebalanced because this person's mood swings were no longer a problem. Inflammation was reduced 500%. And so this person who brought into the program a lot of aches and pains was pain-free. And their energy, this person's energy and sleep and mental acuity was restored. The ability to focus was restored. Their performance was improved significantly. And probably most importantly for this person, their relationships were significantly improved. So what I want to tell you before we go to this case study, this case study number 2, honestly, because I just shared mine, that was my story. And that's the origin of how Tiger was started, was I was healed through this process and I wanted to bring this to other people. So let's talk about Mark. His name has been changed. He is a dentist and he came to us, in his 60s. And his main challenge really was anxiety and panic attacks. You can see there are other things there that he was experiencing. Sleep problems was another one. And he was doing things, taking prescription drugs and doing some other things, but they weren't working for him. So here were the findings in the testing. We found that, again, like me, he had severe dysbiosis of the good and bad bacteria balance in the gut. And it was contributing to an elevated endotoxin, which is listed next there. And he had elevated cortisol, which was associated with insomnia. And these were just a few of the things. Okay, these are the most pertinent. He also had some genetic variants that were also showing he had predisposition for all of the problems that he was presenting now at this stage of his life. So the treatment plan was, take the starch down and, through supplementation, repair the gut health. This was the main thing that we targeted with him. And you can see all the different supplements trying to support these genetic weaknesses and the deterioration of his gut health. And this person was able to experience quite a transformation. We also implemented diaphragmatic breathing, which is something I also did. At 3 months, he'd already improved his symptoms 50%. And so we increased the nighttime breathing to 20 minutes, and we increased one of the supplements. At 6 months, his panic attacks were gone. Remember, this guy had experienced these things for over a decade, and they're horrible. I've had one in my life. I never want to do it again. He was no longer using some of the tricks that he was doing before. He was off the prescription medication. And he was able to sleep through the night, or at least when he woke up, get back to sleep, waking refreshed for the first time in a decade. And at 1 year, you can see here, all of his measures that we started with were fully restored, reversed and restored. And to this day, it's been 2 solid years since he completed our program, still experiencing the same transformation as before. All right, one other example here. This is Thomas. Also, his name's been changed. He's an entrepreneur, was in his late 40s when he came to us, and he had a big goal. He had a son who was becoming an Eagle Scout, and this son had a 65-mile hike that he wanted to go on. And our client came to us with 15 to 20 pounds overweight. He had a family history of heart disease. He had a sedentary lifestyle. His sleep was horrible. And it was showing up in almost like an autoimmune basis, this atopic dermatitis, but also really compromised energy. And he felt burned out, literally burned out. Well, in the testing, we found out, why. His triglycerides were scary, very high, very, very high, 2.5 times what they should be or more, which puts him at severe risk for heart disease and cardiovascular disease. His gut health was off. Again, that's another thing we're seeing over and over and over. His cortisol levels were amped very high because of his schedule. He had genetic disposition to not tolerating lactose well, which was, helped spiking his inflammation. So there were, a few components of his lifestyle changes. Nutrition, we had to take the refined sugars, the dairy, and the gluten out of his eating plan. We put him on a time eating window, which improves metabolic efficiency. And then our supplementation was supporting the things that needed support. We also got him moving 4 times a week around the block. He was literally not moving all day. We got him moving 4 times. And then you'll see later on, we moved that up. We also started him on a more aggressive diaphragmatic breathing program because we needed to get his stress management and his sleep better. And we started to work on his schedule a little bit. It was horrible. And we slowly walked it back. At 3 months, his dermatitis was almost gone. His energy was starting to improve. His sleep was getting better and more consistent. He was compliant with his dietary and supplement recommendations. And so we amped it up. We moved him to walking around the block daily. So you see, our habit changes a little bit at a time so that it becomes habitual rather than requiring tons of motivation. We amped up his breathing. We moved his bedtime back a little bit further. And at 6 months, he was now sleeping 6.5 to 7 hours with a bedtime and a wake time routine. His stress levels were way lower, and he was now increasing his activity to build toward that 65-mile hike that no one could have imagined he could do, 6 months earlier. And at 1 year, here's the cool thing: he lost the weight. He was able to hike 14 to 15 miles a day. Think about that. A year earlier, this person was completely sedentary, and he was at risk of a heart attack or stroke. And now his triglycerides were down in the normal range without the use of any kind of statins or medication. His primary care doctor was amazed. And he was able to go on that hike with his son and make a memory that he only dreamed of a year earlier. And so those are the kind of stories that can be true of you, okay? So let me tell you real quick, how do we do this? Well, if you start at the bottom, and we're missing something there, it should say stress and sleep. That's the foundation. And then what we're trying to do is balance your health by taking some things out and putting other things in, all based on data. And if you move up, you see 3 questions our doctors ask. Why don't you feel well? What do your tests show? And how can you feel better again? And they use that rubric to be able to then give you a personalized plan to move you forward. And they do this testing, all right, through this lens, if you will, a pair of glasses. They're looking at your toxins. They're looking at inflammation levels. They're looking sometimes, not always, at genetics. They're looking at your gut health. That should be in the G also. And then the environment that you're living in. We have found that many people have toxins and mold in their home, and we've been able to remove the contributing factors to why they feel the way they do. And finally, when you do all of this, it ends up causing regeneration to happen. You see, we are doing medicine at the cellular level, all right? And that involves lowering inflammation, lowering oxidative stress, which you do through toxin removal in particular, but other means as well, and improving the environment, okay? And it works every single time. If you show up and you meet with the physician and you most of the time comply and follow what they say, you will see objective improvement in your test results over time in the course of the year that you would work with us if you make the choice to do that. All right, so how you may start thinking, okay, I'm interested, Steve. What is my next step? Well, you want to test, all right? You want to stop guessing. Remember all those people that are biohacking and they don't really know what they're doing, if it's really helping them or not? Well, we have the Tiger Health Assessment, measures over 35 markers, all right? And on top of that, a physician, a world-class physician, will do a review of those markers and give you what your health risks are, so that you have a baseline data set to make an informed decision about how you move forward, okay? And so that's the next best step, all right? So this is kind of how it works. We have a QR code you're going to see at the end. You go on there and you read the website, and if you like what you see, you purchase the test. You receive a lab requisition from us. You go to a local LabCorp. And then when the results are back and the doctor does the write-up, you meet with a Tiger professional. Oftentimes it's me, and we go through your results. We listen to how you're feeling and what your health history is, what your goals are. And then I can, or one of my team members can give you a very clear path forward. And now you have that path forward based on data and real information about your health today. And it's far more advanced than what you're getting in an annual physical at your doctor. And that's not a shot at your doctor. It's just the limitation of what they work within with the payer system. We're able to test advanced lipid markers and other advanced markers that can really give our doctors a good clue about where you are today. Now, obviously, we do a lot more testing if you choose to work with us beyond that. but this gives you a first great step. And here's the cool thing. Your money is guaranteed to be returned to you if you are really unhappy with this process when it's over, okay? So let's go to the next page. Before I show you the rest of the details, I want you to think about this. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person has only one. A sick person will spend all they've made their entire life to get back a day of health, literally. Most people will spend all of they've made to get back health for a period of time so they can enjoy one last time their life. All right. Now, here's the thing. If you were to take action with us and get this data, you've taken one giant step forward for you in giving you the control of how you address your health issues and your health risks. If you wait until you're sick, unfortunately, the health system, the way it's built, will allow you to do that. If you wait until you get sick, the options go down and narrow, and it potentially will cost you a lot more to get better, okay? And it might be too late. And so I want to just challenge you, I want to challenge you to take action today, all right? And it's decision time, all right? If you do nothing, nothing changes, all right? And this really convicts me. I heard this from another speaker, and he said, your kids will inherit what you learn. So if you stop learning and improving, that's what they inherit. If you're really unhealthy right now, and you're successful and you've done a lot of cool things, but you're not super healthy and you don't do anything about this, the possibility is you could get chronically ill, you could die before you should, and that's what your kids inherit. And let me tell you something, my kids tell me every day, Dad, we don't want your money, we want you. We want your wisdom to impact our kids. And so I want to challenge you to think differently and think proactively, become a health investor. Don't wait until you're a healthcare consumer, okay? So I want you to do this too. I want you to ask yourself, how old will you be when your kids are 30? All right. Now, if you're an older person who's had kids later in life, maybe ask yourself how old you'll be when they graduate from college. Put it in the chat, okay? Let's have some fun with this. We're almost done, I promise. All right, and just see that in the chat, okay? For me, I turned 59 years old when my daughter turned 30. I'm 60 right now, and I have a grandson. And I'm glad I made this investment because I have a lot of energy. I have full mobility. I can get on the floor and play with my grandson, Alexander. And 10 years ago, that wasn't true. 10 years ago, I was achy. I was irritable. I had no energy. And the doctor that helped fix me said when he tested me, I had many things wrong with me, and there was a very good chance I would not have made it to age 60. Now, I'm not trying to be melodramatic or scare any of you. That's no way to motivate anyone, but it's reality. It can happen. And we all have stories of people that died suddenly that we don't understand why. So all I'm saying is, what kind of person will you be when that day arrives? Will you be sick? Will you be unable to move? Will you be unable to travel and have experiences with your kids or grandkids? Or will you be like what I am today that I'm so thankful for, and that is thriving and mobile and energetic? So today, again, you can take that first big step toward being the thriving, the mobile, the energetic parent or grandparent or just person you want to be, okay? So here's a no-risk offer that I hope you can't refuse. All right, here it is. Okay, the value of this assessment, and let me tell you something, this isn't some fluffy gimmick to try to build up the value so you think what I'm selling you here is cheap. It's not. To get a doctor, one of my doctors trained at Mayo. He's trained in the Swiss biologic method. He is a board certified medical doctor as well as an integrative root cause functional medicine doctor. 20 plus years clinical experience. He's not cheap, okay? It's $1,000 to get on his calendar and meet with you, whether you have blood work or not. So I'm just using the $1,000. The consumer cost of this blood test is actually close to $1,000, but I just put $500 to be reasonable. So you're getting $1,500 of financial value. You're getting unlimited value in terms of the information that you're going to gain. Okay. And I'll tell you, 95% of the people that I get on a call with after we've had the blood results come in have significant issues that are very addressable if they did it now. And then they could point back a year or two later and say, I defeated that. All right. So the chances are you're going to find something. Don't be afraid of it. What we test for, you can do something about. All right. Your investment today is $397. That's it. And you just go to this QR code and you take a picture of it. It'll take you to a landing page and then just go through the cart checkout. Okay. And don't worry if something happens, I get notified of everything. And if there's a problem, we'll make it right for you. But go through the checkout, purchase your lab. And just remember this, you have my word on this webinar, and it's in writing on the slides, and it's on the landing page in writing. If you're unhappy with this for any reason, we'll refund your money. Okay. We're trying to help you, not trying to make a profit on this. We're actually losing money on this because we can do that because we know a certain percentage of you will want to work with us and work with one of our doctors for a year and get that same transformation that I got. So thank you. I hope this has been helpful. Have a wonderful day. And thank you again for giving me time out of your day to learn about something that you can do today that can change the course of your life.